So if you're an Age of Sigmar player who's 40k curious, it'd be nice to understand what the differences are between these two fairly similar games. So today we're just going to go through some of these 40k rules and see how they differ. Ideally, you could be able to play a casual game without too much hassle after this. Take a look. So the first rule that stands out as being quite different to me is the battle shock. So battle shock is a state that a unit can get into. It has no objective control, it cannot take any actions, basically it's out of the battle, it's just sitting there being dead weight. So we jump ahead. Battle shock is something that's going to happen when you have a battle shock roll, when the unit is either battle shock or at half strength. So when you've lost half the models or half the wounds in your unit, you can become battle shocked. You'll be making this roll. You'll be making the roll to either enter battle shocked or get out of it in the hero phase, which has been called the command phase here. Okay, so what is the battle shock roll? It's about a 50-50 chance, 2d6, and it's called a leadership roll, which is also something new. If you take a look at it, you're going to make this 2d6 roll that'll be in that hero phase, and if it is greater than one or more of the leadership characteristics in that unit, so of any model, then the roll succeeds. And that leads to another interesting point. Another difference between Age of Sigmar is that you've got a unit of your regular models, like your regular troops. You can actually attach a leader, or now I think there's a support unit, so you can attach a hero unit to it, and it becomes part of that unit. It's not a separate entity. That could be nice for a few reasons. In movement, in Age of Sigmar, sometimes you'll run a unit forward, and then you try and catch up to keep within combat range or 9 inches with a hero, hoping it rolls a high enough run. So having them all of one unit is going to be a nice change for that. Also, for leadership, it means that these hero units with a lower leadership number will be able to improve their battle shock tests. Nice. Okay, next we're looking at moving units. This is a little bit different because one thing that stood out to me is that when you move, you can move through friendly models, so that's going to make life a lot easier. Again, shuffling units around, you can just move one from behind first. It's going to be great. So that's straightforward. Any other changes? Not that I can really see. I think coherency is probably the next part. Yeah, coherency is quite a bit different. It might make sense to draw some pictures for this guy. So let's give this a shot. Alrighty. Let's just say we've got 40k on this side, AoS on this side. In AoS, there's a few different stipulations. One is for the smaller units, where every model has to be within half an inch. You can do things like string them out, or you could do them in little circles around a terrain feature, so long as, again, there's some connection by a half inch. That's about 1.5 centimeters. 1.25 centimeters. And then you have the second stipulation, which is that when you have a larger group, so more than 7, you're going to be needing to have every model within that half an inch of 2 other models. You can do some dodgy stuff like this as a maximum 1. Risky, as you know, when you start removing a model, you can lose coherency. Okay, and in 40k, here are the changes. This distance is 2 inches. Secondly, there's no stipulation change for larger or smaller units. One of the stipulations is that you have to have all the models within 9 inches of one another. So from this edge for this model to this edge of this model is an upper limit of 9 inches. So you end up with kind of this circle, a blob. One consequence is an interesting one here. In Age of Sigmar, you can, if you try and do this silly malarkey, if you lose one here, you've lost coherency, and you have to remove models one by one until coherency is achieved again. I'm not counting, it's like 7. And the same thing would happen here. If you lose one model, no matter which one you remove, you would then have to remove a whole bunch more. So you end up in Age of Sigmar wanting to have these sorts of blocks here, which are a bit safer. In 40k, there's always going to be at least, well, there won't always. At worst, there'll be a model which is adjacent to one other, and you can remove that. The 9 inches will shrink. Every other model will still be within 2 inches of one another. So you can choose a model, you won't lose coherency and have to kill them off. You only hit problems if somehow a specific model was targeted, and that seems pretty unlikely. Right, back to rules. So here we go. If we see them 2 inches of one another, 9 inches, I'm not going to worry about the vertical. It doesn't happen that often. And then regaining coherency is the same as Age of Sigmar, but I cannot think of a normal case where you have to worry about that. You can always be careful as you remove them. I want to come back to moving there because I just saw engagement. It says engagement is no longer 3 inches, it's down to 2 inches. That's the combat range. So you're only engaged if you're within 2 inches. And in fact, another movement point is that there is nothing here to say you cannot move through the engagement area. So in Age of Sigmar, you have to stay 3 inches away as you move. This one, you're allowed to move through that combat range so long as when you're doing a normal move, your unit must be unengaged after moving. So you cannot move into combat. You do still have to charge. Okay. Let's go through the different types of movement because they're all just renaming of what we're used to. You've got not moving, which is not actually an action in Age of Sigmar. The normal move is a normal move. Advanced move is a run. A fallback move is a disengage. You will take more damage if you're battle shocked, less if you're not. And then there are just some pile-ins and charge moves. Alright, let's get into attacks. This is really similar. We're going to be rolling dice for the same sorts of things. One change is we can do critical hits on 6 as usual, but I'm seeing critical wounds. Let's scroll for you. Critical wounds on 6s as well. I assume there's going to be some kind of rules on units that can make use of critical wounds. Haven't seen them. The critical hits cause a lethal hit. The others are called devastating wounds. Alright. So, hit roll is as we're used to. Wound rolls are following the Warcry system. So, when you're actually rolling, you compare a toughness and strength. So, there's 2 more stats. It's just the Warcry way. Then you hand the dice over to your opponent, and they will do save rolls. The saves have changed as well. They've got 2 stats here. We've got a regular save, which is a rendable save characteristic. Render's called AP for armor piercing. And an unrendable save, which is an invulnerable. So everyone's got both of them, and you use whichever is best. So we can check the save roll. You will just have an invulnerable save, directly compare the dice roll, and then save and the rend, the AP, together to check the dice roll. If they pass either one, they get to save it, don't take the damage. Pretty straightforward. Now we're getting to some nitty-gritty stuff. Hazard rolls. This is the roll that you are taking damage when you disengage. So it is a 1/3 chance of taking 1 mortal wound. Mortal wounds are still mortal wounds. I think you'd normally get 1 of those when you disengage and you're not battle shocked. If you are battle shocked, you'll be rolling 1 for every model. Let's check that. So if you're not battle shocked, in fact, you don't make 1 roll at all. If it is a desperate escape, you're going to make a hazard roll for every model. So you'll lose about 1/3 of your unit. About 1/3 of your unit. We've seen how the hit and win rolls work for attacks. Now let's take a look at how shooting itself happens. We have mostly a renaming. Normal shooting is shooting. Assault shooting is being allowed to run and shoot. Close quarters shooting is shoot in combat. Indirect shooting is new. That's being able to shoot when you do not have line of sight. And I should say that the way if you can do assault shooting, it's on the weapon. So weapons will be assault weapons rather than on the unit. One last difference I see is that in the hero phase, you're going to be getting 1 command point that's slowly building up over the battle. Whereas in Age of Sigmar, you get a pool that you have to use within that turn. So that's something a little bit different as well. Other than that, I have not seen any major differences. You can probably get by with a casual game knowing those sort of changes. So if you like this kind of content, do not subscribe. I'm not going to do this ever again. Heard enough. If you like it, feel free to hit the like button because I like positive feedback. Anyway, have a good one.